But the first credit that just made me go, I didn't recognize any of the names, but I see Frederick Wiseman, and I'm thinking to myself immediately, there's no way that this is the Frederick Wiseman. But then I'm listening to the narration, and it's like, okay, that sounds like a really old guy.
Yeah.
It's official. A vote has been passed to begin construction on the currently unnamed middle school in Douglas within the next 3 weeks. The Hillsborough County Board approved measures to repurpose county land in the center of Douglas to build that school.
Turns out it is the Frederick Wiseman.
So why did you put the way people do, the Ohio State University, in front of Frederick Wiseman, a man I had never heard of before this film?
Yeah, it's real film nerd shit. Okay, so to get a sense of Wiseman's importance, not just to this movie, but like the entire history of movies, I'm going to give you a really quick journey that'll go from the French New Wave to Wiseman in the United States in just a few sentences.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the 1960s. A bunch of French filmmakers are running around with these lightweight cameras that are made by a company called Eclair. You're thinking Truffaut, Godard, the New Wave movement, a filmmaker named Jean Rouch within the cinema verite nonfiction film movement. And it inspired a lot of American filmmakers, including Frederick Wiseman. He picked up a 16 millimeter version of the Eclair camera. He ends up making a bunch of what are called in the US direct cinema. To be clear, Wiseman didn't really like either one of those terms. He didn't want to be associated with cinema verite or direct cinema.
Yeah.
He called his films reality fictions, effectively fly on the wall, sync sound. No, at this point, nonfiction documentary films were all voice of God. It would be, the interviewer.
Here's the lion in the savannah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The Maisel brothers are also heavily associated with this movement. Wiseman himself was really preoccupied with the bureaucratic institutions, both banality and complexity of American life as depicted in these institutions. Speaking of institutions, the first movie that he ever made was called Titicut, Follies. It was about a Massachusetts hospital for the criminally insane. And then he followed that up a year later with High School, which was about a public high school in Philadelphia. And he also, I found out, is 95 years old and made a documentary in 2020 at age 90 called City Hall, which is about government operations in Boston. And it's 4.5 hours long. Wow. The thing about Wiseman, and I think why he wanted to call his movies, what was it?
Something fiction.
Reality fictions instead of cinema verite or whatever, is he didn't buy into the pretense and the bullshit that he was somehow telling the truth, the big capital T truth. He's like, no, when I go to a high school in 1968, and
I'm walking around with a camera.
I'm walking around with a camera. Everybody reacts differently.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm choosing to put my camera in a certain place, and I'm very much choosing to edit this movie. And I want to tell a narrative story. He did not shy away from wanting to tell narrative stories with his documentaries. High School is like this funny but very bleak view of high school life in 1968, of course. We're in the middle of Vietnam, civil rights movement. The teachers are shown as being not prepared whatsoever with what's happening outside the country. They're kind of controlling. They're kind of mean. They look like assembly line workers treating kids like parts that they're building a car with.
There's always a generational difference between teachers and the kids they're teaching. But in this case, it's like there's this real cultural transformation too. So teachers that grew up with the sort of respectability politics of the 50s probably are now trying to teach these kids who are like, y'all are sending me to war. There's a draft on. There's all this racial unrest. There's this whole civil rights movement.
So during the filming of High School, the My Lai massacre occurred, literally while they were filming.
Yeah.
And then a month after they finished production, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated.
Yeah, wild.
The character of Howie in the movie Eephus is the age of what those teachers would have been like.
Interesting.
So I guess if you call it the Great Generation or the Silent Generation, somewhere in that range. I think what's fascinating to me is watching High School, and yes, it's entertaining. It's like watching all the ingredients come together for how to make a boomer. These students are all boomers. And if you play with a timeline of these guys that are in their 40s, the characters in Eephus are the age of their boomers. They're guys that would have been 18 in 1968.
Yeah.
The great movie reviewer A.A. Dowd from AV Club had this to say about High School, which I think wraps it up pretty good. High School gradually morphs into a quiet depiction of clashing generational values, with the instructors as torchbearers for a general worldview on the wane, and the students as the voices of a new country being born in their image. So this moment I want to play from our movie to tee this up is when Howie's watching the game and he just decides to talk about what he thinks about the fact that they're building a school.
What do they need a school for? I mean, to learn, I guess, but kids learn on the job. I mean, they don't need a school, practical day in and day out kind of thing. Flipping burgers, cooking hot dogs at hot dog stands.
I hate this goddamn business.
And you get to see, like, what does it look like when a boomer was in the lab being created? They were graduating high school in the 60s, and 30 years later, they found themselves, really uneasy about soccer and hating the idea of a school replacing the baseball field where they play.
Here's just one big backyard. My backyard. Till fucking Graham builds that school. And this dugout becomes a art class with fucking easels